Please help me welcome Mr. David Saggau. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. Wouldn't it just be easier if I changed my last name? There are question cards outside the room. If you just write down some sample last names for me. But I liked Jenny's segue. Everybody knows what a segue is. That might be an easier thing to do, so thank you for that. Jenny and Mike are right. There are a lot of changes occurring in our industry right now, and this can be a very frightening time for utilities. It can also be a very exciting time. We choose to think of it as the latter. It's an exciting time for us. A lot of changes specific to cooperatives, and I will talk about some of the challenges that we've had in running our utility here in Minnesota. My comments are just going to focus really on a couple of areas. First, the evolution of our portfolio, our generation portfolio. And let me foreshadow my comments a little bit by telling you that wind power, all renewables, but particularly wind power, is becoming an incredibly valuable resource to electric cooperatives in the upper Midwest, particularly in Minnesota. And as we increase our reliance on wind power, it's forcing other decisions, fairly creative decisions, with respect to our remaining generation portfolio. And so we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about, as we clean up our generation portfolio and make it more energy efficient, and we are making it cleaner, and we are making it more efficient, we believe that now is the time to really electrify more of the economy, because electricity is a good choice for a lot of applications, for a lot of people. We'll do our job cleaning up the portfolios, but we need help electrifying the economy further. We'll talk about some neat programs that we have in place trying to do that in outstate Minnesota. But before I get to those things, I've been asked to give you a little bit of background on electric cooperatives generally and Great River Energy in particular. So with that, let me just briefly spend the next few minutes talking about the history of electric cooperatives. This is a map of the United States in 1935, and the blue shaded areas that you see are the areas of the country that had access to central station power in 1935, or were connected to the grid, if you will. Not surprising, you see the large population centers, large industrial areas of the country, but vast portions of the United States did not have electricity, and for very good reason. It's very cost prohibitive to provide electricity in certain parts of the country where it's very, very rural, like the areas that we serve. 1935 was the year that the Rural Electrification Act was passed, was signed into law by President Roosevelt as part of the New Deal. And under the Rural Electrification Act, low-interest loans were made available to folks in rural America who would band together and create their own distribution cooperatives to get electricity to the rural parts of their area. It's inconceivable to us today to think that just over 80 years ago, the federal government's reaction to people living in rural parts of the country who wanted access to electricity, because of course today we see electricity as a necessity, a right, really. The federal government told people in rural America, if you want electricity, build your own utility. And yet that's exactly what happened. Over the next 15 years, from 1935 on, over 900 electric distribution cooperatives were created throughout the United States, including 44 right here in Minnesota. And in 1950, this is what that map looked like. Stunning change, isn't it? Today, electric cooperatives serve 75% of the United States geographically, and yet we're responsible for just 12% of the energy produced and consumed in the country. To meet their wholesale power supply needs, most distribution cooperatives around the 1950s started banding together to create generation and transmission cooperatives, or G&Ts. Great River Energy is one of 60 G&Ts that were created during this time frame when 28 distribution co-ops in Minnesota banded together to create us. The original rationale for the creation of electric cooperatives, it still exists today. On average, these are national numbers, and it's a little different in Minnesota, but it's very close to this. On average, investor-owned utilities serve 34 customers per mile of line. Municipal utilities serve 48 customers per mile of line. Does anybody want to guess how many customers cooperatives serve per mile of line? 7. We serve 7. This is one of the reasons why cooperatives are laser focused on cost, because we have so few consumers to spread costs over. It's also why cooperatives, despite their relatively small footprint with respect to power production, are so involved politically at the state level and at the federal level, because we watch regulations that affect our costs very, very closely. Some rules and regulations have a disproportionate impact on electric cooperatives because we have so few consumers to spread those costs over. This is a map of Great River Energy's service territory today. You can see the 28 distribution systems that we serve highlighted there. Collectively, Great River Energy and its 28 distribution cooperatives serve about 2/3 of the state of Minnesota geographically and provide electricity to 1.7 million people in the state of Minnesota. We also serve 30,000 people in western Wisconsin. I don't want to forget about those folks. Of the 60 G&Ts doing business today in the United States, we're the 4th largest G&T. I know, Mike, you said we were 5th. We go back and forth. So depending on which year you used, 5th could actually be right. We're 4th or 5th with total assets of just over $4 billion and total annual revenues of just under $1 billion. We're governed by a 24-member board of directors. That seems daunting to some people, but it works for us. And to be qualified to serve on our board of directors, a member of our board must also be a member of the board of directors of one of our 28 distribution members. So that's the qualification to serve on our board. Our board of directors meet monthly, by the way, the first week of every month our board of directors meets, so very frequent meetings. In addition to the monthly board meetings, we also have monthly meetings with all of the CEOs of the 28 distribution cooperatives that we serve. This meeting occurs in the 3rd week of the month. So every 2 weeks, my staff is meeting either with our entire board of directors or all of the CEOs of the distribution systems that we serve. That may seem a bit like overkill, but it's not. Communication in running a co-op is key. And these continual interactions that we have with our key stakeholders is very important to build consensus and make decisions rapidly. We're actually a very nimble organization, despite our size and maybe the pedigree that we have being an electric cooperative. Sometimes cooperatives aren't seen as being very progressive or very fast in their decisions. We're actually a fairly nimble organization. Our wholesale power rates are very competitive, and our member systems rely on this. There are 10 wholesale suppliers that do business in Minnesota. Great River Energy's wholesale power rate is 5% below the weighted regional average cost of electricity in Minnesota. And our rates are also very stable going forward. Our 10-year rate forecast calls for rate increases of about 1.5% per year for the next decade, and so that, which is just below the rate of inflation, by the way. So on an inflation-adjusted basis, our rates are going to remain flat or go down a little bit over the course of the next decade. We're a large owner of transmission lines in the state. Not surprising when you look at our service territory, just under 4,800 miles of transmission line. This includes recent additions, our portion of the CapEx 2020 build-out, which was a wildly successful collaboration among 11 utilities, and I see a lot of my counterparts from other utilities in the audience. Thank you for the work on the CapEx 2020 lines. A very necessary build-out of the transmission throughout the upper Midwest. It was very, very good. Generation, we have just over 3,700 megawatts of generation in our system. 710 megawatts of that are renewable. Now, most of you know Minnesota has a renewable energy mandate that requires us to get 25% of our energy from renewables by the year 2025. And we are on track to achieving that. In our renewable mix, we have a lot of different things. RDF, anybody know what RDF is, by the way? Oh, I should have known this audience would know that answer. Refuse-derived fuel, it's garbage. Burning garbage actually counts as a renewable resource under Minnesota renewable laws. We also have 22 utility-scale solar installations throughout the state of Minnesota. A lot of these are located at the headquarters buildings of several of our distribution systems. In fact, senior management just made a recommendation for a 23rd solar installation we'll be bringing to our board early this spring. It's about 3.5 megawatts. Under the renewable energy mandate in Minnesota, there is a carve-out for solar that does not apply to cooperatives, which we're happy about, but nevertheless, we still have built a lot of solar. We built it not because it was mandated, we built it because our members asked for it. And we size our solar installations to meet the needs of the members. And that's really what's driving our decisions to invest in solar. Cost is coming down. It's a great resource. It has its limitations. We're working on that. But we really do like what is happening with solar right now. But by and far, the largest amount of renewables that we have in our portfolio is from wind power. And now, one of the things that makes wind power economic is a federal production tax credit. Because we're a nonprofit cooperative, we can't take advantage of the federal production tax credit. So all of the wind in our portfolio, we have pursuant to long-term power purchase contracts with developers who can take advantage of the production tax credit, and they flow the benefits of that credit to us through the price we charge. There is a huge transformation occurring in our industry in the upper Midwest, and it has to do with all of the wind that's been added lately. To be honest, 10 years or so ago, when wind was first being developed in the upper Midwest, it was a very disruptive resource for us. We weren't very good at predicting when the wind would blow. The transmission system really wasn't up to par to handle the intermittency of the wind. And quite frankly, it was wreaking havoc with the economics of our baseload coal plants. So we didn't like it much in 2005, 2006 timeframe. Fast forward to today, in the MISO footprint, there were 15,000 megawatts today of wind. 12,000 megawatts of that are just in the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Iowa. So we have a tremendous amount of wind here. And wind is a great resource. It has gotten predictable. We've gotten very good at predicting when the wind is going to blow. Thanks to CapEx 2020 build-out, the transmission system is able to handle the intermittency of all of this wind. It has no emissions. It has no variable costs. It's relatively inexpensive. What's not to like? We say at GRE, we're big fans of big fans. And sorry for that, and I should have apologized in advance that was coming out. But we really do like wind. But one thing that is occurring in the past, we've tended to think of our baseload resources, our coal resources, as baseload, and every other resource being supplemental to that, regardless of what it was. Well, that's been turned on its head now. I would suggest to you that wind is quickly becoming the new baseload. And to be viable going forward, all other sources of generation must be flexible enough to be supplemental to the wind. Kind of an exciting thing right now. And you get your mind around that, it makes a lot of sense what we start doing with our other assets and other resources and why we're so committed to the wind. Recently, in fact, just earlier this week, we announced that we've entered into an additional contract, a very large contract, for more wind resources. 300 megawatts is going to be coming online. It's a new wind farm. We'll be receiving the output of that in 2019 or 2020, and that will bring the our total renewable portfolio to over 1,000 megawatts. Not bad when you consider just a decade or so ago it was almost zero. We really didn't have much in way of renewables back then, so we're actually very excited about that. Evolution of our portfolio. Of course, the impact of wind has had a big impact in the way that we think about these resources. Great River Energy has 12 power plants throughout the region. 3 of them are coal, and I'm just going to spend my time talking about our 3 coal plants and sort of what's happening with them because they are the most impacted by what's occurring with what's going on in the marketplace right now. This is a picture of Coal Creek Station, which is our largest power plant. It's in North Dakota, 1,150 megawatts. It's a great performing plant. By the way, this picture doesn't do it justice. There's no frame of reference here, but this power plant is 27 stories tall. And that fly ash dome you see off to the right, you could play football in. This is a very, very large facility, very, very good performer for us. One of the issues that all coal plants have with respect to the introduction of a lot of wind is how do you make them flexible enough to follow the wind or the trends? Coal plants are designed and built to run 24/7, 365 at full capacity. That is what they like to do, and that is when they run the best. That's 1,150 megawatts. There is a level of output from coal plants below which you cannot go and keep all systems hot, because if you fall below that line, you're going all the way to zero with your power plant. That's called minimum load. And the minimum load at Coal Creek Station was 850 megawatts up until last year. That made it one of the more flexible coal-fired power plants in the region, by the way. To be able to go from 1,150 down to 850 and back up while keeping all systems hot was a good thing. And you know, it's interesting, for decades, our engineers have worked on ways to increase the output of our coal assets. We've spent no time whatsoever in trying to reduce our minimum loads at the coal assets. We have some very bright entrepreneurial engineers working at Great River Energy, and some of them got together, and in 2016 we made a series of very modest modifications to Coal Creek Station. And the amount of dollars that we spent to achieve it were very minimal, under $5 million, so very minimal investment for this. We have now reduced our minimum load from 850 megawatts down to 300 megawatts at this coal plant. Isn't that amazing? You've never heard of a coal plant that can go from 1150 to 300. Now, technically and on paper, we can go to 250. We've not tried that yet. But late last fall, during a period of a lot of wind production, there wasn't a lot of load in the system, we actually brought Coal Creek Station, kept every system hot. We brought it down to 300 megawatts. It worked beautifully. When the wind started to taper off and the load started to return, we brought it right back up to 1,150 megawatts in a matter of hours. It worked very, very well. This is a game changer for Coal Creek Station, and I would suggest that all assets out there, all generation assets, have got to achieve that level of flexibility to be responsive to what is becoming the new baseload, at least in our region, which is wind power. Okay, so that sets Coal Creek Station apart, I think, just in that. You know, one of the criticisms of too much reliance on renewable energy is the intermittency of renewable resources. And what happens when you have a calm, cloudy day and you have a polar vortice come through? We need all generation. This is a really neat tool for us that Coal Creek Station can ramp down so far. And yet, when the wind stops blowing, by the way, wind never stops blowing, it tapers. We know that it's coming. It never just ends. But this is a great resource we know we have to bring back online to meet the electric needs of our consumers. Reliability is of huge concern to our membership, and this is one of the ways that we're going to ensure reliability going forward. Fly ash sales. Just talk about some other innovative things happening at Coal Creek Station. The landfilling of fly ash is becoming a real issue for a lot of utilities. Environmentally, it's kind of horrible to landfill a bunch of fly ash from coal plants. Coal Creek Station produces 400,000 tons of fly ash per year. This is North Dakota's largest power plant, by the way, so we produce a lot of fly ash, 400,000 tons annually. But we don't landfill any of it. Not 1 ton of fly ash gets landfilled from Coal Creek Station. We sell it into the concrete market because our fly ash is of a quality that makes it a good substitute for Portland cement. And so what could have been a several $million annual cost to our membership to landfill fly ash is actually a several $million a year benefit to our membership because we sell it into the concrete market. The Twins ballpark, the new Vikings stadium, the 35W bridge, our own headquarters building in Maple Grove, all built with fly ash from Coal Creek Station. There's another environmental, and they're solid as a rock, Mike, they're solid as a rock. So I'm jotting notes, don't go to the new Viking stadium. No, it is just fine. There's another environmental benefit, by the way, selling fly ash into the Portland cement market, and it's this, besides avoiding the landfill. The production of Portland cement is highly carbon intensive. In fact, for every ton of Portland cement produced, they're produced in kilns, a ton of CO2 is released. And so by substituting 400,000 tons of fly ash for Portland cement, we avoid 400,000 tons of CO2 emissions just by utilizing the fly ash, a waste product, at this coal plant and putting it to beneficial use. So we really like that. Waste steam, just a couple things I want to talk about here. These are actually some neat things that Great River Energy has developed and are somewhat unique to us. It's utilizing waste steam, monetizing the waste steam at our power plant. Let me give you a power plant 101. It takes 8 seconds. We burn coal to heat water to create steam to spin turbines to create an electrical charge that we then get on the lines. Okay, that's how you create electricity. In that process, there is a lot of waste heat and waste steam. And so for years, Great River Energy, again, cost is a huge driver for us. We have looked for ways to monetize some of these assets like the waste steam. And here are a couple of examples. Here, the dry fining process. This one's really neat, actually. It's a process that was developed by Great River Energy, patented by us, and we are now in discussions with several utilities throughout the world, really, who are looking at this technology as well. This went into place in 2010, and here's the concept. We take waste heat from the back end of the process, and we bring it to the front end of the process and create a fluidized bed of hot air over which pulverized coal goes prior to combustion. This reduces the moisture content in coal by about 1/3, and as a result, we burn 4% less coal to get the same amount of megawatts out of the plant. This is a tremendous efficiency gain. In our industry, by the way, efficiency gains of 0.1% are newsworthy. This is a 4% efficiency gain at Coal Creek Station. We spent over $250 million developing this technology, and it went in place in 2010. It had a 4-year payback for us. Tremendous value. This plant is very different than a lot of other plants, and that's one of the reasons. Blue Flint ethanol, again using waste steam. We have an ethanol plant that we built in 2007 adjacent to Coal Creek Station. And what's unique about this, our ethanol plant doesn't look like an ethanol plant at all because it doesn't have a boiler. We use 100% waste steam from Coal Creek Station to fuel the ethanol making process, making it one of the lowest per unit cost of ethanol producers in the country. For an original investment of about $30 million, our members have benefited $125 million just on that ethanol plant. Not a home run, but a single, right? We look for value wherever we can find it. There's one more thing I want to mention. It's not on my list, but we're currently in discussions with a large agribusiness outfit that's interested in building very large commercial greenhouses adjacent to Coal Creek Station using our waste steam, heat, water, and CO2 to grow organic vegetables year-round. We're just in discussion stage now, but we're very interested, they're very interested, and I think within a year or two we might be there. Despite the fact that the plant is now very flexible, and it's a very good performer now in this marketplace because we can avoid the times of the year where prices are very, very low by ramping down and take advantage of the low-cost wind, and we have a lot of value-added projects associated with this plant. We do understand that the future is going to be carbon constrained for us. And so in 2013, our board of directors took the step of accelerating the depreciation of Coal Creek Station. We basically cut our amortization schedule in half. And so Coal Creek Station is going to be fully amortized in 11 years, and it'll be off the books. It doesn't mean we're shutting it down in 11 years, but it does mean that if for some reason Coal Creek Station is ever economically or environmentally obsolete, our members aren't stuck with a large stranded investment. So we wanted to get this written off. Remember I mentioned the rates. Our rates are very competitive right now and are stable. Those rates include the extra cost of acceleration of the depreciation on this asset. So we're pretty happy about that. I'm running way behind time here, so let me just quickly go through the next couple of things, because I also have a video I'd like to show you, Mike. It doesn't compete with yours, but it's good nevertheless. I think you'll like it. Our other two coal-fired power plants, Fearwood Station, this is our newest plant, 99 megawatts. It can run on either natural gas or beneficiated coal, dry fined coal from Coal Creek Station that we ship down. One thing neat about this plant, it's 60% efficient. And under the Clean Power Plan, ironically enough, this coal plant may actually produce carbon credits. And that is because under the Clean Power Plan, utilities and states are required to reduce their CO2 emissions to no more than 1,305 pounds per megawatt hour. And this plant emits 1,100 pounds per megawatt hour. So we could actually generate carbon credits running this coal-fired power plant that we can use to offset the carbon emissions from our other assets. Kind of a neat thing. This plant is primarily about steam sales. We also have an ethanol plant adjacent to it. Same economics as Blue Flint ethanol, great performer for our membership, and we provide steam to a large malting plant that's just south of the plant. Our last plant, Stanton Station, this is our oldest facility, 50 years old last year. We did celebrate its 50-year anniversary, and it was worth celebrating because that plant has served our membership extraordinarily well for 5 decades. But last year, in July, we made the decision it was time to shut down the plant. And so we made the announcement on July 15th that the plant was shutting down effective May 1st of this year. And since that announcement was made, all of our activities at this plant has been around the closure of this plant. We couldn't justify the investment in this plant to make it flexible, to ride with the market. We couldn't do any value-added projects here. We're sort of landlocked with this facility. And so as tough as the decision was, we made the decision to close Stanton Station. This is a quick picture of the energy mix, the capacity and energy mix. This is as of 2017, and it includes the impact of shutting down Stanton Station. Just want to point out on the energy pie chart that you see there, we still get 60% of our energy from coal. Now that's down from over 80% not that many years ago, so it has been decreasing. The way this number is going to further be decreased is not through additional closures of power plants. It's going to be through the cycling down of the power plants during seasons and times where we can rely on the wind power that's in the markets. And I think this number will actually drop fairly dramatically. This is a picture of our headquarters building in Maple Grove. It was Minnesota's first LEED Platinum building. When it was designed in 2006, it was the 14th LEED Platinum building in the world. And the reason we built a LEED Platinum building, and it was by design to be LEED Platinum, we want our members to use more of our product, but we want them to use it efficiently. And building a LEED Platinum building was one way we could make our members see how to use our product more efficiently. And I'm going to wrap up my comments on some ways that we're trying to further electrify the economy, but in an efficient way. We don't want people to waste energy. It's not like at my house where doors are left open and lights are left on and dogs are running crazy. We want them to use it efficiently. And so that really comes in two forms. One, economic development. This is important, I think, for this crowd especially to know. And it's a call to those of you that can have influence over economic activity in outstate Minnesota, in particular, where we serve, where they really do need help. Great River Energy has had a revolving loan fund, a $10 million revolving loan fund. We provide loans to businesses that relocate or expand in our service territory at no or low interest rates. So it's been a very, very good program for us. We also have a buy local program. Great River Energy will try to find vendors for services and materials that we need in the operation of our utility that are local, that are in our service territory, because as businesses in our service territory grow, so grows the electric usage, and we like that. And so we would like to keep the money in. We have a $200 million annual capital budget at Great River Energy, and 71% of our purchases go to local businesses. And every time we let a contract to a local business or vendor, I send the CEO of that company a personal letter explaining why they got chosen, that we believe in keeping money local and encouraging them to do the same thing. I've heard back from numerous counterparts that they've started doing the same thing at their businesses. And so outstate Minnesota really needs the economic incentives that come by something like this, which is great. The second way we're looking at getting our members to use more of our product is by creating new uses of electricity. Mike already mentioned the storage water heaters, air source heat pumps, the pursuit of data centers. I want to spend the rest of my time on the last two things, which is kind of exciting for us right now. The electrification in the transportation segment. Think of electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which is really terrific, and also electric school buses. In 2015, we launched a program called Revolt, and some of you may be familiar with Revolt. I'm going to play a short video here that really shows you what Revolt is all about. But basically, any member of ours in our service territory that gets an electric car or a plug-in hybrid electric car gets 100% renewable energy for the life of that vehicle at no additional cost to them. Wildly successful. Thank you for that, Michael. And I also appreciate the opportunity to take a sip of my coffee. Thank you, Mike, for that. This concept, great ideas come through collaboration, not through contemplation. And the idea for Revolt actually occurred here in St. Paul at a luncheon with Mike Noble, talking about, 3 years ago, Mike, 2 years ago? And how do we get people to use electric vehicles? And well, the University of Minnesota study had just come out saying that electric vehicles aren't that clean. Well, how do you challenge that? Let's give them renewable energy for the life of the vehicle. And that's really what started the Revolt program, so thank you for that. Electric school buses, same concept, but here's what's exciting about it. School buses charge at night, they would just charge during the day, right? The buses are just used during the day. An average school bus route in Minnesota, in our service territory, is 66 miles a day. electric school buses have batteries that go 100 miles a day. So this would work in Minnesota. Here's the exciting thing. In the summertime, school buses sit idle, June, July, and August. These are the months we've been desperately searching for cost-effective storage solutions. Think about solar being produced. Solar is produced between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. primarily in the summertime. Our load peaks at 7 p.m. The ability to store solar during the day, to use it at night when we're peaking, is huge. And so later this year, thank you for that applause, later this year you're going to hear, we'll be announcing a pilot project trying to electrify the school bus fleet in our service territory. Very exciting stuff. To give you a better sense of what's happening with the EV program, I would like to play a short video for you. It's just a couple minutes long, and I hope you'll like it. It sort of gives you a sense of what we're talking about.
Hi, I'm Evie, and I know what you're thinking. You didn't think electric vehicles could look this good. Well, thanks. I'm flattered. But I'm not here to toot my own horn. I'm here to tell you about an amazing offer by Great River Energy and your cooperative. An opportunity to power your electric vehicle with 100% wind energy for the life of your vehicle at no extra cost. It's all part of a new program dedicated to making EVs a thing of today. It's called Revolt, as in be free, as in ba-ba-da-ba, join us. And when I say us, I mean hip moms like Kate, guys like John, and slobbering messes like Moose. They're already loving their EVs and excited about the benefits and the bragging rights that come with Revolt. The best part? The opportunity to power your vehicle with wind. As Revolt rolls out, we'll be working hard to build a more sustainable EV future. So today, we're asking you simply to consider an EV. And with Revolt, we're making it increasingly attractive to do so. Because to arrive at the future we all hope for, someone has to lead the way. For more information, or if you'd like to chat, head to mnrevolt.com. Or maybe I could pick you up sometime. Oh, that came out wrong. I'm not that kind of EV.
Isn't that great? What do you think? Kind of a, you know, this is not your father's Oldsmobile, right? And in many respects, I think we are not your father's electric cooperative either. We've changed dramatically over the years, and I hope you see that. My last slide here, let me just, I will wrap up. This is a triple bottom line that our board of directors adopted in 1999. It drives all of our major decisions. Everything we do as a utility has to ensure competitive rates, reliable electric service, and environmental stewardship. And when you think about the things that we've just talked about, adding more wind power because it's cost effective to do so, figuring out ways to reduce minimum loads at Coal Creek Station, building a 60% efficient Fearwood station, the very tough decision to close down Stanton Station, advocating the efficient use of our product through programs like Revolt and electric school buses and some of the others, all meet these three criteria. We're very happy about that. These three criteria will guide us as a utility going forward. So expect more of the same from us going forward. No doubt about it, we still have a lot of work to do as a utility, and we understand this. But I've been CEO of Great River Energy now for almost 13 years. And I can tell you I'm very pleased with the progress we've made to date, and I hope that you are as well. Thanks again for the invite to be with you here tonight. I very much appreciate it, and I look forward to our discussion. Thank you. Thanks.